What time is it in your city and which part of the world are you watching from? Drop your country and local time in the comments and don't forget to like, share, and subscribe if this story grabs your soul. The Galactic Council had long ago classified planets based on how dangerous they were to sentient life. From the fertile comforts of Class 1 garden worlds to the merciless chaos of Class 8 death worlds, every known celestial body was neatly categorized. Every species accepted these classifications as gospel. That was until humanity emerged from the blue orb they called Earth. Earth had originally been marked as a potential Class 4 death world, temperamental climate, moderate predators, and a disturbingly high frequency of natural disasters. But it was manageable, survivable with technology and cooperation, or so they believed. The first real sign that something was off came during the Zellari conflict on Carnos 5, a backwater rock crawling with fungal spores that caused psychosis in every known species. The Zellari military command had sent in their finest hazard extraction unit, fully shielded, neuro-patched, and equipped with adaptive AI-assisted combat suits. They lasted 4 hours before succumbing to hallucinations so violent that they tore each other apart. 3 Terran Marines were dispatched next. No shielding. No patches, no AI. They cleared the facility in 37 minutes and left without a scratch. Reports were dismissed as exaggerations, outliers of a newly uplifted species trying to puff their chest in a galaxy of giants. But deep inside the halls of galactic intelligence, unease was beginning to fester. It was just the beginning. Months later, during a relief operation on Arvalus 12, a planet ravaged by plasma storms and housing shifting gravity fields, rescue droids had failed. Council responders had perished. The few surviving Arvali children huddled in the remains of a collapsed bioshelter, presumed doomed. A single human volunteer, Specialist Dana Miles, entered the zone wearing little more than an insulated suit and a wrist-mounted navcom. She walked through cyclone tunnels, traversed broken tectonic plates, and carried all 8 children out, one at a time. The footage circulated the net holo for weeks. Earthling walks through hell and smiles. It was the most downloaded media file in 3 sectors. The council began to ask questions. What made Earth so different? Why did its inhabitants not just survive Deathworld conditions, they seemed to thrive in them? A research committee was quietly formed. Human biology was dissected, Earth's climate history analyzed, and their mythologies explored. The deeper they dug, the more the council panicked. Earth was not a Class 4 death world, it wasn't even a Class 8. There was no class high enough. The system was flawed, because Earth was beyond it. But the real revelation came during the Cylon uprising. The Cylon were a warrior caste species, evolved on a lava-vented world, forged by fire and pressure. For millennia, they had conquered weaker species, annexed entire moons, and prided themselves on being the apex predators of their region. They declared war on the Galactic Council when sanctions were placed on their expansionist policies. The Council, weakened and fractured, debated endlessly, fearful of an open war. Earth didn't debate. They deployed the 12th Terran Expeditionary Fleet. What followed became legend. The Cylon homeworld, Zerthax, was fortified with gravity cannons, solar lance satellites, and a planetary defense mesh capable of disintegrating asteroid-class threats. The humans bypassed all of it, not with superior weapons, but with resolve. They dropped orbital spikes to jam communication, unleashed ion fog to mask landfall, and deployed foot soldiers without cryo-fatigue. Men and women who had been awake for days, running on caffeine, adrenaline, and spite. When Cylon elites attempted to engage in hand-to-hand combat, believing themselves to be physically superior, they encountered a phenomenon now referred to as Terran Rage Threshold. One Cylon commander managed to impale a human sergeant through the shoulder. The human pulled the blade deeper, locked eyes with the Cylon, and whispered, "You just made a mistake." Then he smiled. He died, yes, but not before taking out 6 Cylon berserkers with him, detonating a plasma grenade in their command deck. The Cylon sued for peace within 72 hours. By then, hundreds of other council species had watched the footage, parsed the data, and sat in terrified silence. A new classification had to be created, a Deathworld unlike any other. Class 9, Earth. But even that, some said, was generous, because Earth didn't just create survivors, it birthed monsters and saints. It trained warriors who laughed at gravity, slept under radiation storms, and built machines capable of breaking moons in half, for fun. A quiet directive was sent across the network. No species was to provoke Earth unnecessarily. Trade would be encouraged. Treaties would be honored. But conflict, never. Except someone didn't get the memo. In the shadows of the Council's peace, a secretive alliance was forming, one that believed humanity had overstepped, that Earth had become too powerful, too feared. A plan was hatched to test the resolve of humans once more, and that plan would lead to consequences the galaxy wasn't ready for. The silence following the Cylon surrender lasted precisely 9 galactic standard months. In political terms, it was barely a breath. Yet in those 9 months, something changed. Systems that had once dismissed humanity as an overzealous newcomer now saw them as a volatile power, one whose smiles hid blades and whose peaceful diplomats wore reinforced synthweave under their robes. The Council tried to maintain balance. Trade agreements were signed. Cultural exchanges were encouraged. A few brave ambassadors even traveled to Earth to observe the so-called Deathworlders in their natural habitat. Most returned with haunted eyes. One Kalari representative, who had spent a week on Earth's northern tundras during a winter research tour, described the experience as being constantly aware that nature wanted me dead and the humans wanted to help, but only if I could keep up. The story should have ended there, with the galaxy wisely avoiding direct confrontation, but power always breeds envy. Far from the galactic core, on the fringes of explored space, a coalition of species met in secret: the Thalnari, the Rent, the Kos, and the Vark. They called themselves the Equilibrium. Their purpose to level the galactic playing field by force if necessary, and their first target was clear: Earth. Not to destroy it. That would have been suicide. No, they planned something more insidious: infiltration, sabotage, isolation. The plan was to sow distrust, to stage false flag operations, and to trigger internal unrest among humanity's colonies. A few well-timed viral outbreaks, a whisper campaign that humans were experimenting with forbidden technologies, an assassination or two of high-level Terran officers blamed on a rival species. It worked. At first. Earth's communication network was briefly compromised. Several outer rim colonies went dark. A supply convoy vanished near the Asterian Rift. Panic began to ripple through the civilian networks. Some members of the Terran High Command suspected a resurgence of Cylon aggression. Others feared rogue AI. Then came the signal, a short burst transmission, encrypted in a protocol so old it hadn't been used in over 2 centuries. Valkyrie has woken. 3 words. That was all it took. Across human space, systems once dormant lit up. Emergency war bunkers activated. Subterranean launch silos, buried under mountain ranges and ocean trenches, unlocked and hissed to life. Cryovaults, hidden on uninhabited moons, began thawing their contents. Valkyrie wasn't a person, she was a protocol, a last resort failsafe, and she had just been activated. On the council floor, confusion reigned. Delegates demanded clarification. What is this Valkyrie system? Is it a weapon? Why is every human ship rerouting? The Terran delegate, a middle-aged woman with streaks of gray in her tightly braided hair, stood slowly. She tapped a console, projecting a single image in the center of the chamber, a map of the galaxy, overlaid with red arcs radiating from Sol. "This is not a war declaration," she said calmly. "But if your factions continue to push, you will not get another warning. You will get Earth, unchained." The chamber fell into stunned silence. That night, the Equilibrium made their move. They deployed nanite assassins into 3 human embassies. They bombed a diplomatic cruiser en route to the Crazy Peace Summit. And most importantly, They hijacked a Terran colony ship loaded with 18,000 civilians, including children, and set it on a collision course with a binary star. Their message was clear: Earth bleeds too. They expected chaos. They expected negotiation, maybe even surrender. What they got was the Ninth Fleet. It arrived with no fanfare, no communication, just action. Every known ship signature of the Equilibrium was tracked within hours. Earth's data nets, now fully secured under Valkyrie, cross-referenced every movement for the last 10 cycles. Patterns emerged, dots connected, and then, the purging began. On the moon of Relisar Prime, a Ko's listening post was obliterated from orbit. No warning, no survivors. In the Rent capital, a Terran stealth operative walked into their Ministry of Defense, detonated a singularity grenade the size of a fingernail, and vanished through a portal before the building folded into itself. The Vark homeworld never saw a fleet. They simply woke to find every satellite reprogrammed to broadcast Terran propaganda on loop. But the most terrifying retaliation happened at the Asterian Rift, that missing convoy. It hadn't vanished. It had gone dark, on purpose. And now, it emerged, rebuilt, armed, and carrying a gift, the prototype of Project Thanatos. A gravity cannon capable of collapsing localized spacetime into singularity knots. Illegal by Council standards, experimental by human ones, but operational nonetheless. They demonstrated it on the artificial moon of the Thalnari, a place once thought impenetrable. It vanished in 13 seconds. For the first time since the galaxy began recording history, every major system went to DEFCON black, because Earth had done something no one expected. They hadn't attacked in rage. They had retaliated with cold, surgical precision. No bravado, no speeches, just justice. Council chambers became battlegrounds for debate. Was Earth now a threat to all? Should sanctions be imposed? Should containment protocols be triggered? But before any action could be agreed upon, Earth spoke again. This time, not through a diplomat, not even through a general, through a broadcast. Unencrypted, direct. It was an old man, weathered, calm, seated in what appeared to be a garden. Birds chirped in the background. "My name is Arthur Keene," he said. "I'm not a soldier. I'm not a politician. I build bookshelves, raised 2 daughters, lost one to war." He looked straight into the camera. "You came after us. You thought we'd fold, thought you could scare us into submission." He leaned forward. "But here's the thing. We don't scare, we endure." Behind him, a Terran warfleet rose into the skies. "Remember this," he whispered. "We didn't ask for this war. But if you bring it, we will end it." The message ended. The galaxy changed. Those who had once scoffed at Earth's Deathworld status now added silent amendments to their star charts. Class 9 was no longer enough. A new classification had to be invented. And Earth would be the first, and only, Class X, because the humans had proven a terrifying truth. The universe's deadliest species weren't forged in fire or grown in labs. They were born, raised, and they called Earth home. The declaration of Earth's new classification sent a ripple through every corner of the galaxy. Class X, incompatible with standard galactic engagement protocols. It wasn't just a label, it was a warning. A red mark scorched across every diplomatic document, every star map, every battle AI's database. For the first time, the galactic elite weren't debating Earth's survival, they were debating their own. But the humans? They were busy building. The aftermath of the Valkyrie retaliation protocol hadn't just left a trail of destruction, it had lit a fire of resolve across human colonies. No longer content to merely defend, Earth's military-industrial complex shifted into full acceleration. Orbital shipyards sprouted like iron forests around Mars, Venus, and even Europa. Jupiter's moons, long considered too volatile for sustained activity, were now hosting black site research stations with security clearances above top secret. They weren't preparing for another war. They were preparing for a reckoning. At the center of it all stood one man, Admiral Kai Mercer, a veteran of the Ceylon incursion, a tactical prodigy, and the first Terran officer to defeat an AI warfleet using analog command protocols. Now he commanded Earth's newest force, the Leviathan Armada. Unlike the traditional fleets of old, the Leviathan was not a collection of ships, it was a modular world-sized vessel with the capacity to house 10 million crew members, 30 fighter divisions, and 4 planetary annihilation weapons. Its core reactor pulsed with energy harvested from a controlled microquasar, another galactic first. Its purpose wasn't defense, it was deterrence. And its first mission, a show of force. The Council received the notification days before the arrival. Earth's Leviathan will pass through the Malkari corridor on the 17th cycle for observation purposes. Civilian systems are advised to clear the vector. This is not a drill. Panic erupted. The Malkari corridor was home to 7 independent systems, most of them neutral, but they were also allies, albeit quiet ones, of the equilibrium. The message was clear, Earth knew, and Earth was done talking. As the Leviathan entered the sector, entire planetary populations watched the skies turn dark, not from clouds or eclipses, but from shadow. The ship was a city made of metal, an ecosystem of weaponry and will. Its hull shimmered with nano-stealth plating, reflecting the very stars it flew past. On its underbelly, thousands of atmospheric entry pods blinked with crimson readiness. The Council scrambled diplomatic envoys. Messages poured in. Please divert course. This show of strength is unnecessary. Earth must understand the value of peace. But Admiral Mercer only sent back 2 words. Observe closely. The passage was peaceful, silent, but every sensor ping, every orbital scan, every idle hum of the Leviathan screamed one unspoken truth. You are not ready for us. And then it vanished, folded into subspace without leaving a ripple, gone but not forgotten. Elsewhere, the equilibrium was unraveling. Internal betrayals, funding leaks, species once united in their fear of Terran dominance, now turned on each other, terrified that one of them might have spoken to Earth, might have confessed, might have been the reason their shipyards were being quietly scanned by Earth's black drones, tiny invisible machines with no signature, no presence, no mercy. The Rhint Empire collapsed within 2 cycles. The Coes began evacuating border systems, abandoning centuries of colonization without a shot fired. But one faction refused to yield. The Thalnari, prideful, ancient and furious that Earth had rewritten the rules of war. They broadcast a challenge, a formal duel of supremacy, an ancient right preserved in Thalnari law, where civilizations could settle grievances in a one-on-one combat arena. The catch, each side would choose 1 warrior. No weapons, no armor, just skill. It was supposed to humiliate Earth, force them to play by alien traditions, show that beneath their machines and fleets, they were still flesh. Earth accepted, and sent a janitor. His name was Daniel Knox, 45 years old, maintenance chief aboard the Solace-class destroyer Artemis V. No military rank, no combat record, but he had one thing, a past, a decorated martial artist, survivor of the Martian dome collapse, volunteer during the Ceylon War where he had cleared rubble by hand for 72 hours straight to save a single child. The Thalnari were furious. This is an insult, their champion roared, a creature 12 feet tall, covered in bioplating and ceremonial scars. This creature cleans floors. Knox smiled. Yeah, and I'm about to wipe the floor with you. The duel lasted 11 seconds, 3 moves, no hesitation. When it was over, the Thalnari lay unconscious, bones shattered, pride obliterated. Earth hadn't just won, they had proven they didn't need super soldiers. Every human was a weapon. The galaxy reeled. For decades, humanity had been treated as the upstart, the unpredictable variable. Now, they were something else, a constant. Empires that once feared Earth now rushed to sign trade deals. Warrior races that scoffed at humanity now sent their best to train under human instructors. Even the Council revised their engagement protocols. Rule 1. Never underestimate a Terran. Rule 2. If you have to fight a human, make sure they're asleep. Rule 3. If they wake up, run. But Earth wasn't done. Admiral Mercer authorized Operation Genesis. Its goal: establish Terran presence beyond the known stars, explore systems untouched by the Council, expand the human frontier, and with it plant the flag of Earth where no one else dared. The first Genesis ship, Odyssey Prime, was launched with a full AI crew, cloned specialists, and an engine that could skip through dark matter itself. It disappeared for 7 months, then returned, with passengers. Not humans, not aliens the galaxy had ever catalogued, but species older than the Council, beings that had fled from something darker than war, something ancient, something hiding beyond the edge of existence, and they had come back, seeking asylum on Earth. When the Council received the data logs, a new fear took root. If these beings feared something, anything, and had chosen Earth as the place to hide, then perhaps humanity wasn't the threat. Perhaps they were the shield. Admiral Mercer stood before the Terran High Command, his face grim. We were born on a Deathworld. We learned to breathe poison, survive cold, laugh at fire. And now, something is coming that scares even the Voidwalkers. He activated the Leviathan fleet-wide broadcast. All systems, prepare. The storm is no longer coming. It's here. Back on Earth, civilians went about their lives. They knew the universe was watching, and they smiled, because they weren't afraid, they were ready. Aboard the Leviathan, the stars were quiet. Too quiet. The Terran command team watched the void ripple on long-range sensors, nothing registered on gravitational scans, tachyon spikes, or radio telemetry. And yet the space beyond segment X-17 was wrong. Not empty, not dead, but silent, like a breath held too long. Admiral Kai Mercer stood at the heart of the Leviathan's nerve center, watching the darkness warp and twist on the main view feed. They were here, not the Council, not the Thalnari, not the Equilibrium remnants. This was something different, something even the old ones whispered about and never named. The humans had found them first, or rather, they had found Earth. 3 days earlier, Earth's deep space satellite stopped transmitting. Then the black site on Enceladus went dark. Finally, a long-range listening post on the edge of the Perseus arm sent a single word before its system fried. The warning came too late. As Leviathan held its position above the neutral world of Thraxis, a breach formed. Not a ship, not even a fleet. A wound. Space itself peeled back, like skin torn by claws, and something crawled through. A Leviathan in its own right, but ancient, malformed, chittering with 1,000 voices in languages never recorded. The crew of the Leviathan held their breath. The AI systems tried to compute it, tried to assign shape and mass and trajectory. They failed. This wasn't a vessel. It was a god, broken into teeth and tendrils. But the humans did not fire. They watched. Because beside the beast, something else emerged. Not monstrous, not malformed, human, or at least, it had once been. A figure drifted through the rift, barefoot, eyes glowing, wrapped in tattered remnants of a Terran uniform. His face bore no expression, but every camera caught the insignia on his chest. Project Vindicator. Phase 9. Status: deceased. Project Vindicator. Earth's forbidden experiment. The program that had tried to splice Terran DNA with Class 12 predatory code, then sealed itself after the subjects turned uncontrollable. They hadn't died. They had evolved. And now, they were leading whatever this thing was. Admiral Mercer's voice was steel. Engage blackout protocol. Prepare the Omega failsafe. The crew knew what that meant. It wasn't just about war now. It was about survival. The ancient creature pulsed once, and the orbit of Thraxis shifted. The atmosphere began to boil. Leviathan fired. For the first time in galactic history, all weapons systems deployed at once. From planet crackers to zero-point detonators, Earth's wrath turned space into a kaleidoscope of fire. But it wasn't enough. The creature consumed the energy, grew larger, and howled a soundless scream that shattered 3 AI cores instantly. The Vindicator moved, appearing on the hull of the Leviathan without transit. He didn't attack. He just looked inside. His eyes scanned the ship like a ghost, searching, until they locked with Mercer's. Then, the Vindicator smiled, and spoke one word, carried into every human mind. Why? Mercer clenched his fists. Because we have no gods. We only have each other. He gave the order. The Leviathan folded space, but not to escape, to collapse. A singularity bomb, forbidden even in Terran doctrine, detonated inside the ship's core, designed not to destroy, but to erase everything. The galaxy watched as the Leviathan, its enemy, and the rift vanished in a wave of silence. Earth mourned. 100 worlds broadcasted memorials. Statues were raised. Songs were written. But one thing echoed louder than grief: fear. Because a week later, the Leviathan returned. No crew, no Admiral Mercer. Just a message etched into its hull. We are the firewall. Inside, black box footage revealed what had happened in the last millisecond before collapse. The singularity had not killed the creature. It had caged it, bound it in a prison of human will, powered by sacrifice and sealed with pain. The Vindicator was inside too, smiling still. He had chosen Earth. Even corrupted, he remembered who he was, and what he had been made to protect. Now, Leviathan was a tomb, a warning, a symbol of what humans could do, not just when fighting an enemy, but when fighting for the galaxy. And then the data files dropped. Stolen records from the Equilibrium archives. Truths revealed. Earth hadn't been given Deathworld status because of its gravity, or its storms, or its creatures. It was given that title because of choice. Because even in peace, humans prepared. Because even in love they trained. Because even when dying, they protected. The galaxy didn't fear Earth because of what it had. They feared it because of what it was willing to give. Blood, memory, identity, everything. For the sake of one another. They finally understood the phrase etched on every Terran warship. Born in fire. Forged in flesh. Bound by oath. Now the galaxy didn't call Earth a death world. They called it a bastion. A place where the weak found safety, where tyrants found silence, and where nightmares went to die. Years passed. The rift never reopened. The council disbanded. New alliances were formed. Not from fear but from hope. And at the center of it all, Earth stood alone, yet never lonely. Because the galaxy remembered. And they never forgot. Because the Leviathan never left. It just waited, sleeping, until it was needed again. So, what do you think? Where are you watching from? What time is it in your city? Tell us in the comments below. And if this story made your blood run cold or your heart pound like a Terran battle drum, like, share, and subscribe. Because Earth is always watching.